I cannot tell you how many requests I have received to help you guys lock in university. And in this video, it is my goal to give you the best advice that nobody gave me when I was a first year, second year, even third year, and now as a fourth year, understand the actual psychological principles behind locking in and getting focused, and how to do it on command, and how to decrease the perceived effort of work. And it's actually not as complicated as you think. So this is going to be a two-part series on how to lock in. We're going to start with why you can't lock in and the approach that you need to take to start locking in. And then the next video, I will show you how to do it. But it will not make sense to you unless you watch this video all the way through. So let's get started. Why can't you lock in? Every time you go into a classroom, into the library, you say, all right, it's time to lock in. This is the semester. I know I've heard every single one of you say it. But nothing changes. Why is that? From a psychological perspective, or even just from a behavioral perspective, you need to change something. Learning is defined as a stimulus. Let's say this is the stimulus, and it is responsible for a behavior. So in the process of learning, what you're actively doing is you're changing the response. This would be R2. So this is response 1. You're changing the response that comes when you trigger or present this stimulus. And the faster you can do this, that defines how intelligent you are. So how do you lock in? Well, locking in is just a matter of focus and doing work, right? Locking in is doing the work that you know you need to do. And so how can we get ourselves from a behavior point of view to do work, right? We have to define what this is. This is doing work. So what is the preliminary step for doing work? Well, the first thing is you need to know, 1, what do you need to do? And then you need to determine how long this is going to take, or if you have time, if you have the resources to complete the work, right? Okay, so this would be yes, then good, you're good to go. If you don't have the resources, no, then you need to get the resources. This is another subsection, so do you know what resources you need? If the answer is yes, you're good to go, because now you can go get them, right? There's a question of access here, but for simplicity's sake, right, you're a student, you're studying, it's not that hard to get certain resources, you just ask, right? You just need to know that you need to ask. If you don't have the resources, no, then do you know anyone who might know, right? Do you know how to get the resources? If the answer is yes, then just go ask, right? That's the same thing as here, go get them. But if the answer is no, then ask somebody who has done what you have done before. Look at other successful people. This is arguably one of the fastest ways to learn. Very important though at this stage is that you define the success at the stage that you're at, because you don't want to do the same thing as somebody who's miles away from you, because they're operating a completely different playing field, right? It's the same thing as if you were a preschooler trying to, do the work or study like somebody in university. There's no point. The work is not the same. It's not the same caliber. So you need somebody who's successful, but right ahead of you. Third is now implement them. Let's say you were trying to get a computer or a pencil or a pen or a piece of paper, right? You can't write notes without a piece of paper or like an iPad or something, right? Once you have them, implement them, right? Start taking notes, start actively doing the work. So this is what allows you to have the ability to lock in. But now let's think about the psychological perspective. Okay, I know how in theory I can, but I don't want to. What do I do when I don't want to? How do I study when I don't know how to study? Well, that's a very good question, right? Now it comes down to the mental aspect. So for the ease of implementation, how do you make locking in easier? How do you make doing the work easier? Well, there's a few ways you can do this, and it kind of just comes down to the way that you manage stress in general. The first thing is get more resources, right? The more resources you have, even cognitive resources, right? The ability to handle problems because you've had prior experience or you've read how to do it or something like that, right? That is a mental resource. You can also have physical resources, right? That's mainly these parts. But the mental resources is also a huge factor. The second thing is make the work easier. So how do you do this? Well, you can break the work down. You can decide what work actually needs to be done and what doesn't, because a lot of work just doesn't need to be done. A lot of people spend a lot of time doing the things that don't actually make a difference. So the question here, does the difference, locking in, make a difference? Right? Are you doing the work that's worthwhile to do in the first place? That's a very big question you need to be asking yourself. Number 5, it's what's the stimulus? And not only that, but what was the original response that you're trying to change, right? Because you're trying to lock in. So whatever you're doing is not working. So we need to define the previous experience or previous response, and also what is the new response that you want to happen, right? You can't just say doing the work. I want to do the work. What does that mean? Define it, right? When I open up the laptop, I want to write my student number, my name, the due date. I want to start writing the first paragraph, start writing the second paragraph. I want to find the evidence in articles, in journal articles. I want to sit down and go with this lecture. I want to go through 5 slides today. But more importantly, keep in mind that when you were learning, you can only have one stimulus for one behavior, because if you have more than one behavior, you don't know which one to do. And so you can't just have like, okay, if I'm trying to lock in for reviewing a lecture, right? Maybe I go to the library, this specific spot, I sit down, I open my laptop, and somebody comes over and says, Simon, start studying the lecture, start this slide. Boom, now I'm going to start the slide, right? That is the stimulus to go, right? It's much easier to be told something to do also, but that's just if you have really good friends, they'll do that with you in the library, right? But yeah, so that's one stimulus, but it's only gonna work for me studying lecture. If somebody says, go study lecture, and I'm like, oh, well, do I wanna go over the slides? Do I wanna rewatch the lecture? Do I wanna do the flashcards? Do I wanna make a mind map? Like, what are you doing, right? So maybe you need to be even more specific. Study the lecture slides. Study the lecture flashcards. Study this class's lecture from today, right now. Be even more specific, because the more specific you get, the better a response you get, and the faster you're going to make that association. So get specific with your stimulus. Most of you have never been specific in your life, okay? You need to be extra specific. You are a dog, Ivan Pavlov's dog. You are his dog. He is presenting a stimulus, a classical conditioning. He is ringing the bell, and you are salivating to the food, right? You need to treat yourself like a lab rat. You give it one stimulus, you get one behavior. If you don't like the behavior, you give the stimulus, and you have in mind what the behavior is that you want to change, because if this is previous behavior, right, let's say this is the previous one right here, you don't want this anymore. You want to get rid of that. Well, you can't just have a stimulus and then have it like disappear, have the behavior disappear, right? That's called extinction. But the way to get this extinct is to present this without doing this, without the middle steps here, right? But it's much easier if you just say, I want to do this instead, right? Then you're learning. You're replacing the behavior. So you present this stimulus again, right? Maybe you do this one twice, and then you forget and you do this once, right? But over time, you're going to do this and this and this and this again and again and again and again, and then you will have learned. And the faster you can do this, maybe it only takes you one try. You're very intelligent. But so many of us, we just said we want to lock in. We present the lock-in stimulus, right? Okay, Simon, lock in. And I just sit there and do the same thing I always do. And so what does that tell me? Well, I'm reinforcing the behavior that when I say lock in, or when I say I just need to chill grind, right? Somebody presented that term to me a while ago, but like chill grind, I don't even know what that means, right? But like I just need to chill grind, or I just need to lock in. Those are two stimuli for the same behavior. And there's a phenomenon in psychology where if you have one stimulus that codes for one response, and then you present it with another stimulus at the same time, like after this has been conditioned, right? So this has already been conditioned, then all of a sudden you start presenting 2 to 1. This stimulus right here, it will have no impact, right? And so then all of a sudden I'm thinking, right? Because the second one, I've already done the chill grind, but the second one is Simon lock in. And so all of a sudden, I have both of these stimuli. I have the Simon lock in and the Simon chill grind, right? Both of them mean the same thing, but only this one is going to even matter. Or I'm just going to put this one and it's going to have the same result as that was conditioned here, when in reality, you want the response 2, right? You want the lock in. This is the lock in response. But because you're presenting it with the same stimulus, you're associating it, but it's not going to make a difference. That is why you need to have a different stimulus, the lock-in stimulus, for a different response than the chill grind and the chill grind response. This is the way that you're going to have a stimulus change. You're actually going to be able to lock in. This is the foundation of learning. But one thing to keep in mind, I said I'd come back to number 4, right? The ease of implementation. You make this as easy for yourself as possible. In physics, if you think about 2 systems, one system here and they interact with this system here, right? Let's say this one is like bananas, okay? This one is apples. And you think about the total volume of food, right? If you combine both of them, there's gonna be more bananas than apples. And so the combination of food, it's gonna be mostly apples. And the larger system is gonna have a greater effect on the smaller system than the smaller system will have on the greater system. In other words, if I have $100 and I lose $1, it doesn't matter that much. But if I have $2 and I lose $1, that's 50%, right? That's half. So yeah, it's gonna have a much bigger impact. And so the ease of implementation, right? You think about yourself, you are small. This is me, right? Little smiley face here. But this is my environment. This is the library, right? This is the bar. This is the frat house. This is the classroom. And so the easiest way to influence the system, the smaller system, you are the smaller system. You are never going to overcome the environment because the system that you're in is too great, right? If I were to breathe out as much as I can in this classroom because I want to heat up the room, it's not going to make much of a difference because the air temperature is, it's set, but also because the room is so big, right? And so I'm barely going to have an effect on this air temperature here. Whereas if I were to just open the window, the outside comes in, oh, it gets cold in here. Influence the system, change the system that you're in, the environment, change the environment. You change the environment, it will influence you. It will make it easier. You surround yourself by people who are smarter than you, that work harder than you, that go to the library every single day. You always go to the library, you always study with smarter people. I guarantee you 100% you'll get smarter. I guarantee that you will lock in more, right? Because if you're surrounded by people who always lock in, one of the basic psychological needs is relatedness, and if you stand out from them, you're not fitting in with the tribe, you are isolated, right? People want connection. And so to fit in, you have to adjust to their standards, right? If they're a bigger system, your friend group is a bunch of hard workers, right? And they're all super smart, and you're down here, right? Maybe you don't work as hard, maybe you don't study as hard, maybe you haven't learned as much as them, right? By the way, anyone who's smarter just means that they've learned more over more time, right? It doesn't mean you're dumb. It's just like anybody can learn. That some people make associations faster. That's intelligence, but it doesn't mean you're smart, right? Because you can be really intelligent and dumb. It's like a speed thing versus a knowledge-based thing, right? So, okay, let's say you have a bunch of friends. They're all really smart. They all work really hard. You're down here. If you always hang around those friends, you're going up, right? There is I'm going to quote the study that says that you are the sum of all of the 5 people that are around you. It's actually not the people who are around you. It's the people you look up to. And they don't have to be in person. You can look up to people on the internet. You can look up to anyone else. So you are the sum of the 5 people that you respect the most, that you idealize. And so if you idealize these really hard workers, I guarantee you'll become a hard worker because they're a larger system. There's 5 of them. And their work capacity is way greater. So you are down here, you're one person with a smaller work capacity. Their work capacity is gonna suck you up, right? And become part of the system. So the easiest way to make yourself work harder, change the environment. And I'll show you the way to do that in the next video. So subscribe, like, let me know in the comments if you like this style of video. I'm pretty energetic right now, a little bit hyped up, but I want to give you guys as most value as possible. I'm a 4th-year undergraduate psychology specialist student, and I'm studying memory enhancement and adaptive learning. So my goal is to provide you with all the information to absolutely crush it in school, in university, if you are transitioning from high school to college, or if you are already a university student. This is what I'm here for. I'm here to give you all of the tips and tricks that I wish I knew in 1st year. So if you like that, subscribe. Let me know down in the comments what you want to see next. Stay tuned for part 2, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.